founder and CEO of Ecomcy, and we are full service agency when it comes to Amazon Women and TikTok. We've been in the space now over 8 years, so a long time. So you can imagine all the things that we have seen, the good, the bad, everything. And of course, that drives to where we are right now, where we have a team of almost 100 people right now globally in the main regions where Amazon operates. And with that, we have a portfolio of over 250 brands, around $500 million in revenue that we manage across the board. So essentially, we come across a lot of kind of situations on a daily basis from a strategic point of view. And more importantly, we come across a lot of interactions in the D2C space as well, because a lot of the brands that we work with, not only now they rely on Amazon, they now have operations outside of Amazon as well. And some of the things I'm going to be going over today is just exactly that. Why it's important, why you have to do it, and what are some of the considerations you had to bring on board to make sure you have the highest chance of success. And to end with my intro, like if you're very keen into these kind of formats, these webinars, and you really want that kind of person that love to learn kind of things on a weekly basis, check the e-commerce lab podcast, where on a weekly basis I bring 2 to 3 people on a one-to-one kind of recordings where I really go deep into everything kind of e-commerce related. So with that said, let's jump into kind of the overview of everything, right? Which is at the end of the day, it's understanding how Amazon kind of coexists with Shopify, right? And this is something that it's a big mistake a lot of brands are doing. I think when it comes to Shopify or D2C in general, a lot of times people think it's one or the other. And the reality is that they are both meant to coexist in the same kind of ecosystem, right? So some of the things that you have to actually understand is that at the end of the day, all these are channels that are going to allow you to tap into consumers from a different perspective, right? And Amazon, you're going to find some type of consumer where potentially you're not going to find in the D2C side of things, and vice versa. I understanding this is really what is going to allow you to really build a brand that's going to be significant in the long term, right? That just becoming a commodity and really struggle by only staying on Amazon. So when we understand that foundation, I think then we go into the strategic kind of thing that we have to implement when it comes to how do we make both kind of coexist into the same kind of ecosystem, right? So when it comes to Amazon, at the end of the day, the first one that I love to bring to the table is that Amazon is a very good source to find consumers. Why? Because at the end of the day, Amazon is built for people that's ready to buy and they're really kind of motivated to make a purchase, right? Into what essentially you're bringing to the market compared to in your D2C space kind of things, where it's more built around the experience and really built to essentially consolidate the lifetime value of your consumers. So once you know that, essentially the best workflow, and that's the workflow I actually see on multi-million-dollar brands, is that you use Amazon to acquire consumers at a cheaper kind of a CPA. And then you bring these customers into Shopify or D2C platform where you can consolidate an experience that they can never get on Amazon. You can maybe open the door to products or experiences that they also can only get through your D2C kind of channels. And more importantly, you can maximize the profitability, because the reality is on your D2C, if you have everything kind of fully optimized, that's really where you can make the most money, right? Compared to Amazon, that sometimes can be only a quick win. It's not really built for a long term if you don't really have a platform to kind of consolidate, kind of a community around your brand, right? Now, let's start with the Amazon side of things, right? I think I just wanted to bring some numbers, kind of why Amazon is important for those maybe that coming only from the D2C world, and they haven't really dived into Amazon yet. I think we're in an era that Amazon cannot be ignored anymore. I know there's mixed feelings when it comes to Amazon, right? At the end of the day, it's getting more competitive. It's sometimes a pay to win certain categories. The fees are very strong. And sometimes it raises the question, does it actually make sense to be Amazon compared to only D2C? And the reality is, as I mentioned at the very beginning, it's not one or the other, it's both, and just understanding how they kind of coexist, right? When you see some of the numbers that you can see on the screen right now, it makes very clear why you have to be there. Like, it's a channel that's going to bring you a level of exposure and traffic that not other is going to bring to the table. Like, no other marketplace or channel is comparable to Amazon. Now, it doesn't mean it's the only one, and it doesn't mean you should only rely on Amazon. But it's important that you essentially start removing that perception that is out there that Amazon is not anymore a place to be, it's very competitive, very expensive, because the reality of it is that if you don't, your competitor, especially that competitor that maybe is also attacking you from a D2C side of things, is going to leverage against you, and it's going to be tough for you in the long term to catch up. And of course, kind of giving you a brief kind of very overview on things that you have to consider. I mean, it's very foundational, but especially for those that are in the D2C kind of world, just wanted to bring this kind of a quick overview of what is important. The number one thing, of course, is the brand registry. Like, this is a must when it comes to Amazon. We are in a phase now that brand registry is more powerful than ever. Like 2, 3 years ago, you will tell to a person how brand registry, and they will say, yeah, I mean, it's just another batch, another check. It's not really anything meaningful now. Amazon is really closing the door very aggressively against the bad players, and it's something that you must have. Again, for all the D2C kind of players in this webinar, which I'm sure some of you are, most likely you already have a trademark, so this is something that you can get going very quickly. The other thing is the pricing strategy, right? This is something that very important when it comes compared to Shopify, right? Now, when it comes to pricing, this is where you have to have a strategy here, because usually compared to Amazon, Shopify, if you're selling on Shopify and then you try to go on Amazon, there's certain impacts that you have to consider when it comes to margin. So that's where you have to understand if your product is really meant for this or not. And then the last one is the advertising. Like, as you guys most likely are doing the D2C work, if you are relying on a strategic kind of implementation of ads, media to bring consumer, in Amazon, the same. In Amazon, you cannot just put a product and just kind of hope people come to the door. So understand this and make sure that's also part of the margin. Now, some basics as well. Again, this is something that, of course, I'm sure a lot of you are aware of, but just as foundational kind of work is understanding some of the things that you must have when it comes to Amazon. I think one of the biggest mistakes, and that's why I mentioned it here, people, when they go from D2C to Amazon, the first thing they do is they copy paste everything from Shopify. And there's many tools out there that allow you to do that. Again, I would recommend you use those integrations to pull all your catalog, especially if you have a big catalog. But don't do the mistake of assuming your images and your copy from D2C are going to be meaningful for Amazon, or vice versa. Why? SEO is different, intention is different, consumer is different. So you need to make sure you localize that. If not, you're not playing essentially the game that the algorithm wants you to play, and then you're not essentially going to maximize the exposure that the platform can give you. Now, when it comes to the fulfillment, this is something that, especially if you're only relying on D2C and then jump into Amazon, this is very important to kind of bring to the table. And some of the speakers today, I'm sure they're going to go deeper into this. But you have to understand that Amazon, of course, is heavily relying on FBA as a methodology. Now, if you are very kind of clever into how you embed FBA with your 3PL and all of that, you can really, really maximize profitability, and more importantly, the speed at which you can fulfill across both channels. So again, this is kind of very kind of high level, because I know some of the speakers today are going to go deeper into this, but this is something that, especially for those that are dealing into the D2C space, when jumping to Amazon, are encountering as a big change, because most of you are using a 3PL, and you should keep using a 3PL even if jumping to Amazon. But you have to understand that now FBA is also an extra layer that most likely is going to be part of your journey. I need to understand how to navigate that. Now, on the Shopify side of things, which is now closer to home to what the webinar is today, the reason why I love Shopify or D2C in general is lifetime value. Every single time I have conversation with brands and we're talking about, what is your growth what is your plan to grow, be more profitable and all of that. What I love is, especially for those that have the mindset of operating in the D2C space, is a conversation now about how do I make money on that first transaction, is how do I make sure I keep that customer engaging as long as I can and maximize the return on investment. Because the reality is that's how you build a brand. In fact, when it comes on the line to exit a brand, the first thing the investor is going to look at is what is your retention and what is the lifetime value, right? Because that's really what matters. Because if you have one of those brands that people buy only one off and then they never come back to you, they never engage with your ecosystem, that's not really a brand. You're just flipping a commodity, most likely. And that's where you have to understand the shift, especially in the D2C space. And I think if you're clever with these things like building loyalty, subscriptions, apps, so many things that you can do in the D2C space. That's really what brings an extra layer that Amazon never would bring to a tailor, especially because Amazon will never even give you access to the clients in the first place. So by you reverse engineering that and putting that layer now on top of your Amazon operations, you can really kind of tap on a new way of maximizing how much money you can get out of your potential consumer. Huh? Now here I wanted to make kind of a graph to make it very visual in terms of how the ecosystem compares compared to Amazon in fees. You can clearly see the differences in fees, right? Shopify D2C in general is way more profitable once you scale it and it's self-sufficient. So that's why you have to be very, very careful to not fall into the trap of thinking Amazon is the only place to be, as some of the people sometimes engage with, because again, it's very good to get the ball rolling, very good to get the initial kind of momentum, getting your brand known. But the end goal, guys, is really you have to create your own D2C kind of experience, because if you don't, the retention is never going to be there. And more importantly, you're never going to own the client. And for those, I'm sure it's 90% of people on this webinar, if you're looking to exit, which is really where you're going to make most of the money down the line, what the investor wants is that you own the client. If you don't own the client, you don't really have any asset that you can leverage. So very, very important. Now, when it comes to essentially migration, right? This is something I wanted to kind of give you an idea of how you could do this, right? And this is something, by the way, that's being used by many, many brands. I have a lot of brands that what we've been doing, we use Amazon as a channel acquisition. We acquire the client, very kind of a low CPA. But what we do, once that initial purchase happens on Amazon, we try to really give them some kind of engagement that allows to bring it outside of Amazon. Everything within terms and condition, we're never breaking here any terms, is sold down to pure branding. And this is something that all the big brands are doing, by the way. The Apples of the world, the Samsung, etc. It all comes down as simple as they buy the product. Once they acquire the product, all the experiences associated with the product, which could be down to a specific feature enabling a warranty, an event, a discount, hundreds of ideas, right? They can only be redeemed through your D2C experience. Now, why this is something that completely changes again, because now what you're doing is you're using this channel Amazon to acquire consumers at a cheaper rate, and then you're bringing them into this ecosystem where you actually can be more profitable and increase the lifetime value. So that's where I have seen some of the brands that we were with really blowing the revenue and the profitability they can do, right? And making the sale on Amazon once, maybe engaging to the Amazon kind of ads that they give you and everything. But the reality of it will never give you the level of transparency. In fact, Amazon is even removing ways of engaging with clients. They're removing, you can now engage when it comes to reviews or follow-ups or things like that. So it's really closing the kind of any bridge for you to have that engagement. That's why it's more important than ever that D2C is part of your ecosystem. And of course, when it comes to the hybrid kind of operational model, to kind of bring this to a closure and leave you with this thought, so then you can kind of blend this with all the things you're going to be hearing today. This is usually what I recommend, right? On Amazon, you're going to have anything that is very kind of easy for people to discover you. For example, we have this makeup brand. They have a lot of products, but they're very premium. What I say premium is usually the any product that they sell is over $100, so very premium. But what they did is they came out with a product which is like, you can think of it as a tester, like a sample version. You try different kind of products within the ecosystem for $49.99, and this is only meant for Amazon. You can only buy it on Amazon, right? And what it is now, with this very cheap offer, they are acquiring a bunch of clients that they would never try the product before because the barrier of entry was so high. And thanks to that, they have seen a huge influx of people then going to the Shopify to actually then acquire the exclusive products, exclusive kind of flavors, exclusive kind of packaging that they can only get on the website. And now that's essentially proving what I've been saying so far, which is using Amazon as a source of traffic and then Shopify to double down and maximize profitability. And then, of course, here, KPIs are very important. You then need to understand how to blend the acquisition cost with Amazon and Shopify. And again, there's many softwares and solutions that can really allow you to do that. I'm sure some of the speakers today are going to give you more insights when it comes to that. But if you understand how to blend those two things and really get the true LTV, like nothing will stop you, because at that point, once you know that your LTV is a number and you know that what you're spending on Amazon and Shopify is lower than that, and it makes sense on numbers game, you can be much more aggressive and you can be much more intentional rather than being blind as most sellers and toggling multiple marketplaces and hope all of that at the end is going to make you a profit at the end of the year. So very, very important. And then, of course, unifying all of this. Again, here's where things start to get more technical. And I don't want to spend too much time on this because it would take hours and hours to really do this. But just to leave you with something to get home to take home as a homework, research something called Amazon Marketing Cloud, right? And it's something we're using very heavily right now with all the operations, including D2C, because now, for the first time ever, we can data fusion engagement within our website, with engagement within Amazon, and really understand the true journey from A to Z. Now, this is something you don't have to do from day one because, again, it's very technical and you really need to understand how to maximize and implement this at scale. But if you have a very good understanding, essentially, if a consumer went to your website or went to a listing on Amazon, or they click on an ad and then they made a purchase, that's really where you are going to then reverse engineer who's your avatar, who's the real path towards conversion. And then at that point, you have a machine that is only a matter of keep putting fuel behind to really scale fast. So I just wanted to give you that kind of seed to take home, because this is really where you unlock the true potential. You know? Cannibalization, very quickly, very, very important, guys, that you also take this home when you're doing this kind of combining Amazon with Shopify. Something that happens a lot is that sometimes the consumers that they're gonna find in Amazon might potentially not find in Shopify, or vice versa. But you need to be very, very careful when it comes to your advertising on Amazon, right? Understanding which keywords to go for that don't overlap the potential same avatar, using audiences to kind of exclude potential past purchases or people that might overlap from a behavior point of view. So just wanted to give you this kind of 30-second slide to also understand that, because cannibalization is also another bigger issue. Sometimes we see that people bring Shopify to the picture or Amazon in the inverse, and they don't see an uplift. And it's because essentially you're just targeting the same consumer just from different angles. And that's something you have to be careful of. Now, here are some tips. Again, this is very foundational, but I just want to make sure you take this home to really make sure you don't let this kind of go under the radar. So I will say the most important thing here at the end of the day is the kind of P&L side of things, if I'm honest with you. I would say the number of times I jump on a call with a brand that does this kind of operational mix of D2C and Amazon, they don't have a clue what their margins is kind of concerning, especially when you then bring inventory into the mix, where accounting becomes really, really complex. So what I'm trying to say, if you're looking to expand, let's say you're a D2C brand, you're looking to expand to Amazon or Amazon to D2C, make sure first all the daily checks and all the things you see on the screen are clear. Because if you bring another kind of source of data or KPIs into the mix, things are going to get much more complex. And then it's going to become an octopus that's going to be very, very difficult for you to figure out. So that's another kind of insight I wanted to bring home. And finally, I would say kind of the reality check, right? Is like, I think at the end of the day, what really is important for you to take home is understanding now that at the end of the day, it's not one or the other, it's how do we combine them. So I think understanding that Amazon, of course, is getting more and more expensive, but at the same time, it's a very good channel for acquiring consumers. Then understand that on the Shopify side of things, it's not anymore about, pretty much having a website or presence out of Amazon. It's understanding that you're building a whole operational system where you can retain your client and really maximize the lifetime value. And just understanding that at the end of the day, if your consumers are most likely buying from a competitor that in this case Amazon, and you're not there, that's just money that you leave on the table that, again, it's just going to potentially impact in the long term, and they're just going to eat into your market share. So make sure you are as present in as many places as possible that makes sense, So that's something that can protect you in the long term. So that's everything from me, guys, in terms of course, kind of the overview of everything. Here I'm leaving my calendar. So any questions that has to do with, let's say you are a D2C brand and you want to expand to Amazon, or even from Amazon from D2C, like I'm more than happy to have initial conversations, see where you are, and hopefully explore how we can be part of that journey to make it possible. So any questions about everything I presented, please drop it below in the comments. And of course, towards the end of the webinar, we can dive in. So yeah, that's everything from me. Cool. So now we go into the next speaker. Okay. So let me just confirm here the agenda. So now next we have Phil. Yeah. So floor is yours. Thank you.
Thanks, Vincenzo. I only have 4 slides. I feel like I have slide envy now after that. Let me just share my screen. Can you see my slides? Or can you see my logo?
Yes, we go.
Okay, cool. Perfect. So yeah, quick introduction. My name's Phil Rees. I'm the founder at e-commerce supply chain consultancy business called SHIPMAX. I've been in logistics and supply chain for around 21 years. And in that time, worked with thousands of brands and retailers of all shapes and sizes, Amazon merchants and marketplace sellers, as well as direct-to-consumer Shopify brands and a fair few kind of omni-channel, more traditionally organized brands as well. So what I'm going to be talking to you about today is how fulfillment can be used as a growth lever. A lot of people look at the fulfillment and the sort of that side of things as just a cost that needs to be quashed and minimized, whilst they're reframing for top of funnel ads, creative, CRO. But often fulfillment can be a really big untapped lever for growth that happens after the buy button. So I'm going to go on to talk to you a little bit about what I mean by that. In fact, before I go to the next slide, I'm going to give you a specific example. So, very recently, I worked with one of the fastest growing brands in the UK. They're in the nutrition space, primarily direct to consumer, but also do a fair bit on marketplace as well. And these guys had grown from 0 in 2020 to this year doing expected forecast of 180 million in revenue. Because they sell nutritional supplements, they got a lot of repeat orders. And they very much used fulfillment as a growth lever. And what do I mean by that? Well, if you go on their website, on their Shopify store, you can order a product that costs £8, what's that, €9, $10. They don't charge for delivery. You can place that order up until about 9, 10 p.m. at night, and you will always receive your product the following day through Royal Mail or one of the other carriers. So they're very much using their fulfillment as a growth lever. And to put some of that into context, on Trustpilot in the UK, there's only one company on the whole of Trustpilot that have more 5-star reviews than these guys, and they're a utility company that sell gas and electricity to UK consumers. So when I talk about fulfillment as a growth lever, that's kind of what I'm driving at. So, and what I mean by that at a deeper level isn't that it's one lever, it's actually 4 levers. So, the first one is conversion. Shipping cost is the number one cause of cart abandonment. AOV, the free shipping threshold, will often help to build a basket and grow that AOV. Speed or speed of delivery, a credible delivery promise that's quick is going to convert really, really well. Whereas if you've got something vague that says, may or may not be there in 3 to 5 working days, and that depends if it's a you place your order on a Saturday or whatever. All of those are going to affect conversion. And as Vincenzo talked about as well, the advantage of DTC through Shopify over something like Amazon is that retention and lifetime value. The brand that I mentioned that I work with, who've grown to 180 million in sales, their lifetime value of their consumer is enormous because they're typically selling their nutritional supplements as a 1 month supply, and their email database, their outreach, their content is all about not just winning one order from that consumer, but getting the consumer to love the product and buy it month in, month out. And they've been very, very successful in doing so. So the flywheel, why this all compounds. So shipping lower cost orders means more margin per sale, which can then be funded into more acquisition, which then can then drive volume, which then earns better carrier and 3PL rates, because we all know that those areas are very sort of volume driven. That then further lowers the cost again. So fulfillment savings don't just save money today, but they can ultimately fund growth. And the more you grow, the more you can save. So that flywheel then continues to turn. So what I would suggest anybody who's interested can go away and do as some quick takeaways. First thing is always to benchmark your delivery and 3PL rate cards. You may have no intention of moving. You may love the carrier that you work with. You may go to dinner or play golf with the guy that owns the 3PL that you operate out of. But that doesn't mean that you can't go out to market once or twice a year, get rate cards from some of their competitors, and at least have something to use to hold their feet to the fire. When you get complacent with your delivery partners or your 3PLs, that's when you see your rates creep up, and when you're no longer being offered their most competitive tariffs. So even if you're totally comfortable where you are and worried about moving to another partner, then the people who you're working with don't necessarily need to know that. So I would always advocate for benchmarking at least once a year, if not twice a year. Another quick thing that can easily be looked at is the delivery promise on your product page. Is it there? Is it visible from day one, or do you have to go all the way through to the checkout in order to see how much delivery is going to cost and how long it's going to take? Often shoppers will kind of decide on those things long before they reach the basket and the checkout page. So having that clear and visible up front in the customer journey is very important. Third thing is cross-border growth, a channel that you're considering or even potentially ignoring. One of the things we've seen last year and this year is a kind of tightening around cross-border compliance. It's becoming more and more difficult to hold your stock in one location and serve the whole world from one country. That used to be, certainly for UK merchants and Shopify brands, that used to be the kind of modus operandi. With Mr. Trump in the US and the introduction of tariffs last year and the removal of the de minimis, we saw a massive trend of overseas brands moving stock into the US to fulfill it locally. Just this year in the European Union on the 1st of July, a new change was implemented that means that now if you're serving direct to consumer from outside of the European Union, then there are duty related surcharges that are going to apply to your parcels as well. So that is now creating a groundswell of brands and merchants looking to actually hold stock within the European Union, whereas previously they may have served them from overseas. In the UK, we're also likely to, or not likely, we are going to be bringing in a similar change. I think it's either 2028 or 2029. Rachel Reeves, who was Chancellor at the time here, has announced that the £135 duty-free de minimis will be removed in about 2 to 3 years' time, following suit with the US and the EU. So being able to have inventory in multiple locations is kind of like the pro move for brands that want to be able to scale and sell all around the world, not just in the home market. The way to look at that from a fulfillment point of view is always to try and find and work with a partner that can be your one partner around the world, but have inventory held in multiple locations. It's what we would call a 4PL rather than a 3PL. The challenge with adding multiple 3PLs is if you're working with one 3PL in the US, one in the UK, and one in Europe, for example, and those three businesses have no connections between them, operate off different warehouse management systems and different tech platforms, then you ultimately have three vendors to work with, three windows into your inventory, and obviously, it becomes a lot harder to manage. So there are a number of providers out there that can give you allocation of inventory in multiple territories, but give you one window into that inventory. So that's something that we're advising a lot of brands around at the moment. And of course, if you need support, then reach out to us at ShipMax, and we'll be happy to scope out how we can help you in any of these areas.
Thank you, Phil. That's awesome. Thank you so much for that. Cool.
No
Any
problem.
questions for Phil? Of course, guys, please feel free to drop it down below, and then of course we can go over that towards the end. Okay. So cool. So next we have Stefan. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, let me just share my
Thank
screen.
you.
Phil, I think you need to stop sharing first before
Yeah,
I can share.
that's right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Done.
Thank you. Mhm.
Thank you. All right, can everyone see my screen?
We can see, yes, we can see your slides. Awesome. Thank you.
Perfect. All right, so how's it going, everyone? My name's Stefan, and I'm the founder of Email Superstars. So we're an email marketing and SMS marketing agency, and we work with our focus is working with D2C e-commerce brands. And one of the things that I think is really unique or kind of differentiated about the way we work with brands is the way we leverage brand avatars when it comes to our email marketing. And that's exactly what I'm going to be talking about here today. So, what exactly is a brand avatar? Well, in order to really cover that, I think it's important to first talk about the traditional method of e-commerce email marketing. And this is something that I'm sure you guys are probably really familiar with. Like, here are just some examples that I pulled out of my inbox of what the traditional model really looks like. And I mean, like I said, we're probably all familiar with this. It's the fancy design type emails with images and graphics and lots of buttons and shop nows all over the place. And there is a lot of, I mean, there are some advantages to using this style of email marketing in the e-commerce industry. And that's why it's so universal and so ubiquitous, right? So, first of all, we have the visual appeal of the emails themselves. And that's something that can go a long way when it comes to grabbing people's attention and really leveraging that visual appeal to create this consistent branding, and also to increase the positive affect that people have towards your brand, right? So if you're, for example, a makeup brand and your emails look really good and really, really aesthetic, then that kind of subcommunicates the idea that your makeup will also make your target audience look really beautiful and really, really aesthetic, right? So there is definitely some value there. And of course, we have the fact that using this style of e-commerce email marketing, you have a high density of click opportunities. So obviously, they're with all the buttons and everything, it's very easy for people to click and then be directed to your PDP, product description page. And then from there, now they're inside your Shopify website and they have the opportunity to browse and to eventually purchase, right? So there are definitely some pros to this style of e-commerce email marketing. Now, there are also, however, several important disadvantages as well. So the first major disadvantage, and really there's two major issues with this style of email marketing. And the first one is that email was really designed for personal communication, right? So it was designed to facilitate communication and strengthen relationships between people. And that's kind of the entire basis of the email marketing algorithm. So when the algorithm is deciding where to place your marketing email inside somebody's inbox, right? If it's deciding whether to put it in the primary inbox where your subscribers are actually going to get a notification pop up on their phone, right? A mobile notification to alert them to the fact that they just received an email from you, which can be very important if you're running a time limited sale, right? To make sure that people are aware that you're sending them emails rather than your email landing in, the dozens of different folders and tabs that exist nowadays to kind of segregate marketing emails from the quote unquote important emails, right? So when the algorithm is deciding where to put your email inside the inbox, that's one of the biggest things that they look at, right? So what they look at is how much does this email really resemble a personal form of communication between two people? And what does the history of engagement between the sender and the recipient look like, right? Like, does that engagement pattern mirror what you would expect from two humans communicating, or does it more closely resemble marketing style communication, in which case they're going to put that email in a suboptimal folder where it's going to get lower readership, it's going to get lower open rates and overall lower sales, right? So if the answer to the question of does this look like personal communication is no, then your marketing emails by definition are going to get lower open rates, and it doesn't matter how pretty they are if they never get opened and read, right? And the second major problem to this style of email marketing is that email marketing is really retention marketing, right? And the idea of retention marketing, the name of the game there is to build positive and profitable relationships between your brand and your email subscribers. Now, the issue with the traditional method of just sending marketing emails from a faceless brand is that as humans, we're really biologically wired to pay attention to and to trust other humans rather than faceless companies, right? And so it's much easier to build relationships with people when you communicate with them as a human rather than as a faceless brand. And it's something that people can relate to better. It's something that people can put their trust in a much easier way if they feel like they're talking to an actual person rather than, some conglomerate or something like that. And that's really where the brand avatar strategy comes in. So basically the way it works is you kind of create a persona or an avatar with their own name, their own story, their own identity, their own voice, their own personality, and all that jazz. And this avatar is essentially going to be your brand ambassador to your audience, right? So instead of just sending purely design-based emails that look, pretty and everything, but they're kind of coming from just your company, you would start sending emails, you'd start to mix in emails, right? So it's kind of a mixed strategy. You wouldn't go just one or the other. You would mix in these emails from your brand avatar. So as you can see here, there's the name of the brand avatar at the company, which I've blurred out. And then there's the face of the brand avatar over here, right? And right off the bat, like this feels like someone is actually speaking to you, like a real human is speaking to you. And in the age of AI, this kind of personal touch has become even more important. It's become something that people are kind of really craving when it comes to the marketing that they receive in their inbox, right? Like people are tired of kind of like mass marketing AI slop. And this kind of personal touch really goes a long way nowadays. And the thing with a brand avatar is, you can base it off of a real person who works for your brand. And you could also just completely make up a fictional character, right? Like it doesn't have to be a real person. It can be a completely made up character. And you could have one brand avatar, you could have multiple brand avatars. And I'll get into that in a bit later when I go through a case study to kind of illustrate how that would work. But the really important thing here is that your brand avatar has a story and a personality that is both in line with your brand identity, right? So you want them to be representative of your brand. You want them to be a brand ambassador, and you also want their personality and their story and their voice and all of that to really resonate with your target audience. Because at the end of the day, you want your target audience to relate to this person. You want your target audience to feel like they know this person, that they can trust this person. And that can take some time and some testing to kind of slowly hone in on the best voice and identity for your particular audience. But it is definitely a worthwhile process because the results can be quite powerful. And I'll get into that in a bit later when I do go over that case study. But first, I just wanted to quickly show an example of what this even looks like, because it's kind of an abstract concept until you see what it would look like in practice. So this is just a quick example that I pulled from an email that we sent out for one of our clients. And as you can see, the equivalent of this in like the email, the traditional email marketing model would just be kind of like a, hey, we're back in stock notification image with like a button to go buy now. And as you can see, we're giving them the same kind of announcement that we're back in stock, but it's in the voice of the brand avatar, and it's written in this relatable style to the audience The audience is women between the age of 30 and 50. That's kind of the primary demographic that this brand is targeting. And so the voice of the brand avatar is kind of in line with what the audience would really resonate with, and what they would find kind of charming and likable, right? So that's kind of the key. And you can kind of see just from quickly reading this how much more relatable something like this is versus sending that traditional e-commerce heavily designed type email. And so just to go over some of the advantages of using a brand avatar and why it can be so powerful when you incorporate that in your email marketing. So first one I've already touched upon, right? Like when you build up that know, like, and trust factor, it can really boost conversion rates, because when people feel like they can relate to someone, when people feel like they can really trust someone, whenever you run a promotion to your subscribers, they're more likely to believe that you're giving them an amazing deal if they hear that from the person that they trust, right? If they hear that from the brand avatar versus if they hear that from some faceless company. And that, of course, is going to lead to higher conversion rates when it comes to your promotional, when it comes to your promotions and the sales that you run. Now, the second one is better inbox placement, right? And this is something that I've covered and touched upon a bit as well. So when your emails look like they're coming from a real person, they tend to get better inbox placement. And not just that, but when people think that a real person is speaking to them, they're way more likely to reply to those emails, right? And in fact, you can actually leverage the brand avatar to solicit replies from your email marketing subscribers. And when inbox providers see people replying to your emails, that's a very strong form of personal engagement, right? So that's not typical marketing engagement. That's personal communication type engagement between two people. And so that's a very strong signal to inbox providers, to Gmail, to Microsoft, to Yahoo, that your emails belong in people's primary inboxes, right? Your emails belong to be put in places where people can see them and where people are going to get that notification popping up on their phone. And so as a result, your emails are going to get a much higher open rates, which of course means more sales overall. And another reason is, and this is something that a lot of marketers don't really leverage as much as they could be, in my opinion. So one of the things that email marketers really focus on is building up a relationship with the audience. And the typical way they tend to do that is by offering quote unquote value, right? And there's nothing wrong with providing value to your subscribers. In fact, that's a very important part of building a relationship with them. But I think what a lot of people miss is that value is great, but there's a reason that people procrastinate reading textbooks, for example, by spending hours binge watching their favorite TV show, right? And the reason behind that is because entertainment is just a far better method, in my opinion, of really monopolizing someone's attention. And with a brand avatar, you can actually, and this is a little bit more advanced, but you can really leverage the brand avatar's voice to get people hooked onto reading your marketing emails by kind of incorporating the same elements that get people addicted to their favorite TV shows. So, humor, it could be drama, it could be conflict, it could be stories with cliffhangers, it could be characters to root for and against, right? Like all these different elements that give people dopamine spikes when they open your email. And as a result of that, what you get is people start reading your emails, your marketing emails, just for the sake of reading the email itself, even if they're not actually interested in buying anything. And when it comes to higher ticket items, that can be really powerful because it means you're able to nurture leads indefinitely until their buying window opens up. And therefore, you're able to collect that sale rather than a competitor, right? And so the other thing that actually you could do with this is, because your emails are entertaining, you can get away with sending more marketing emails than a competitor would be without pissing off your email subscribers, right? Because they actually want to receive your emails. They actually like reading your emails. You're able to just email way more frequently, which gives you more touch points with your audience, again, without pissing people off and without having them unsubscribe or report you as spam. And in fact, for almost every single e-commerce brand that I've worked with, I've sent daily or almost close to daily marketing emails, and it's never really been a problem. That's something that very few brands are doing. Like very few, at most, a lot of brands are sending like 2 to 3 emails a week, if not, like one a week or one a month. And you're just able to get way more touch points when you send daily, which of course results in faster relationship building. It also results in more sales overall, because again, people just have more opportunities to buy. And so to kind of illustrate the power of what a brand avatar can do, I put together this little case study here. And the reason I chose this case study in particular is because it's a very good example of how you can implement a brand avatar in a very easy and low effort way. So some of the stuff I was talking about earlier, where I was talking about, how you can create stories with cliffhangers and all that stuff. Obviously, that's a little bit more intensive, but you don't have to do all of that just to get great results from using a brand avatar. And so this brand in question, this was a pet store brand that was doing great overall, but their paid ads and they were doing great overall when it comes to their paid ads, but their email revenue was severely lagging behind. And specifically, they were quite unhappy with how poor their post-purchase flow was performing, because the guys who were running this company, so they were quite savvy marketers, and they knew that right after a customer buys, that's one of the best times to hit them with an offer and to get them to buy even more. And so immediately after every customer bought one of their products, that customer would receive a sequence of 5 post-purchase emails, and all of those emails were promoting this 50% off plus free shipping offer. And I mean, as you can see, those emails were not doing too hot. The placed order rate is pretty abysmal, and the open rate also is not great either. And that was something that was kind of like a frustration for them, because they thought that their post-purchase flow should be doing a lot better. And so when we took over, what we did is we replaced those 5 emails with just 3 emails. Here's one of those emails here. And as you can see, there's a markedly significant improvement in the open rate and both the placed order rate. And here is kind of what the overall post-purchase revenue looked like. So as you can see, this was the month of May. And then their welcome flow was doing quite well. So their welcome flow was doing 37,000 that month. And then their post-purchase flow, as you can see, was severely lagging behind. They only had like $900 in revenue generated from their post-purchase flow that month. And then here was the very next month after we implemented those 3 emails. And as you can see, the welcome flow revenue did go up. So they were sending more traffic to their Shopify website. So that's important to keep in mind. The welcome flow revenue nearly doubled. But what I want to draw your attention to here is how much the post-purchase flow increased relative to the increase in the welcome flow revenue. So as you can see, the post-purchase flow revenue actually started to almost reach the welcome flow revenue. So the welcome flow generated $60K the very next month, and the post-purchase flow, again, with just the 3 emails instead of the 5, generated $50K in revenue for that month. And I mean, if you guys know anything about email marketing, this is extremely rare that you would see a post-purchase flow generate as much revenue or close to as much revenue as a welcome flow. That's not supposed to happen, right? Your welcome flow is usually significant by a significant margin, the biggest kind of moneymaker in your Klaviyo ecosystem or whatever email marketing platform that you use. And so the question is, of course, how were we able to do this? And the answer to that is not that we changed the offer, right? We actually used the exact same offer as they were using previously. I mean, we did tweak it a little bit, but we were still promoting a 50% off plus free shipping offer. And the real change, of course, was we just leveraged a brand avatar. But it wasn't just any brand avatar. So if you remember earlier, I talked about how you can use multiple different brand avatars. And I mean, sometimes what you can do is just create a brand avatar to be an ambassador for a very specific phase of your customer journey, right? And this is a very kind of low effort way to leverage the brand avatar strategy. And so in this case, what we did is we created a brand avatar called Jess, and we used Jess to kind of act as an ambassador for the shipping department, right? And here's what the actual email or one of the emails looked like. And as you can see, the brand avatar reaches out. It lets them know that we're about to ship their order. And it kind of talks about this other thing that they can get for 50% off with free shipping. And the important part here is we let them know that, hey, if you order this before we ship the thing that you already bought, then we can put everything in the same box. And that way we can give you free shipping on your next order as well, right? So the reason this works so well is, first of all, there was a very personal feel behind the email, right? And that created instant rapport and instant trust and credibility. And instead of just using an arbitrary deadline, like, something like this offer expires in 48 hours, we came up with a very credible and like human sounding reason for why they need to take the offer now. And it's because if they order the upsell before we ship their package, then we could put everything in the same box, right? And that's very credible. That sounds like a very real thing that a person would say. And that is really the secret to why this flow performed so well. It's, again, because of that personal feel, because of the rapport that we were able to generate by using a brand avatar. And that's really kind of a microcosm for how powerful this strategy can be. So just to wrap things up here, if you guys are interested in getting the most out of your email marketing results and the most out of just your retention marketing in general, then I would highly recommend experimenting with leveraging a brand avatar alongside the traditional emails that a lot of e-commerce brands are using. And like I said, this doesn't have to be something crazy intensive. It doesn't have to be creating all these fancy stories and creating all these, really powerful, emotionally captivating emails. It could just be something as simple as, instead of sending out the traditional post-purchase email, it could just be sending out an email from someone in your shipping department with that human touch to it that a lot of people can really relate to and that a lot of people really resonate with. And if this is something that you are interested in implementing and you want us to do it for you, then you're more than welcome to reach out. My website is emailsuperstars.com, and you can get a hold of us there as well. And
awesome.
Thank you
for that, Stefan. That's awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it. Cool. So next we have Phil Byrne. Yeah. So how you doing?
I'm doing very good. Very good. Nice to be here. Thank you, Vincenzo, and everyone else. I'll just share my screen and everyone can tell me when it is viewable.
Which they cannot see it.
Can everyone see that?
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Fantastic. So guys, my name is Phil Byrne. I'm the founder of Positive Sparks. And we are a commission-based ads agency. Google Ads is our primary product. And everyone has spoken very eloquently today about what DTC can do to succeed. And I'm going to talk to you about Google Shopping, because I believe that Google Shopping is the #1 place for an e-com brand to succeed outside of Amazon and to send good traffic to your Shopify store.
Just a quick one, Phil. We can see the slides, but we can also see the side of it. So I don't know if you're gonna put full screen, so we can only see the slides.
Let me just check that.
Don't worry. Maybe you should have an option that says present or something like that, and you should have an option to put only the slides. Let me know if that works.
Let's do this. Let's try one more time. Thank you for telling me.
No worries. And guys, please, for those, of course, joining us live, remember, feel free to drop as many questions as you want, and then, as usual, then at the end we're gonna have open Q&A over all the topics. So cool. So now works. Yeah, cool.
Now it's good. Okay, great to know. So what we're going to look at today are some realities about how Google Shopping works and how we can use Claude AI in this very AI-driven year, 2026, to help us tell Google where to focus our spend. So when we first set up a Google Shopping campaign, what happens is Google pushes our budget across all of our products. And for pretty much every e-commerce brand we've ever worked with, which is over 800 now in total, the 80-20 rule works out. So 80% of the revenue comes from 20% of the products. And sometimes it's even 90-10 or 95-5. So what happens in a Google Shopping campaign is Google wants to show your products right across the board unless we give it a good guide as to what we want Google to show in shopping. The way we do that is we use something called labels. So just to verify that discussion there, we can see here that on average, this is an average of across over 2,000 audits that we've done in our time, 30% of a catalog had 0 clicks in the last 30 days. And that comes from the fact that our budget is often exhausted before every product gets a chance to show. 15 to 25% generate clicks but get 0 conversions. And this 10 to 15%, sometimes a little more, drive most of the revenue. So to control that budget much more effectively on Google Shopping, we need to make sure most of our budget goes into the 10 to 15%. So what we do is we use labels. So every product that we push to Google Shopping, goes via a feed that comes from our Shopify site and goes into Merchant Center. And we are able to assign each product a label. And these are ones that we commonly use across many different clients. So heroes are the products that consistently sell for you and do so at a profitability that you are happy with. What that profitability should be tends to vary across different sectors. Phil, you spoke about nutrition and supplements before, and that can often be a sector where that first purchase just wants to break even because the LTV comes from that customer repeat purchasing. Then we have sidekicks, which are products that sell, but just less often than the hero. But again, they sell consistently. They have some demand, just perhaps not the same demand as heroes. And then we have the promising sector, which these products are showing signals, but we just need to give them more investment and let them appear more to see what they can become. The villains are the ones that we want to exclude quite quickly. So those are ones which show quite often, but we just don't convert. Maybe we have a competitor who is showing a better price than us. Maybe our product has something else about it. Could be delivery speed, could be anything. That means that we just don't get that conversion on the page. And Vincenzo, you mentioned before about really focusing on a Shopify site to improve your conversion rate if it's 2% or below. One easy, simple CRO fix is to move budget from ads away from villains, and that'll naturally increase our conversion rate. Zombies are products which are invisible. Google doesn't show them. We run out of budget before they get a chance to show. And with that type of product, we have to work on the titles, work on the pricing perhaps, or put them into a separate campaign and push budget to them to see what they can become. Then we always have a big sector of products called flagged, which means they have mixed signals, and we want to review those before we push them into a campaign type. So all of this labeling nowadays can be done via AI. And the way we do that, 5 simple steps. We export from Google Ads our shopping products for the last 60 days, 90 days to 180 days if your budget is relatively small. And we download a CSV file. We also download our Google Merchant Center feed, and we pull that into Claude as well. And then we put both those files into Claude and we run a prompt. And what I'll do at the end of our talk is I'll put a URL for a landing page that you can go to, and you can download this guide free of charge to try on your own site. And then what we do is we build something called a supplemental feed. So a supplemental feed is one that sits alongside your main product feed that's coming from Shopify. And what the supplemental feed does is it gives extra attributes to each of your products based on labels, sometimes product titles, and other things that help you push your products more. So in this sense, our supplemental feed would be labeling your products based on their performance. And then when you have all that in place, you are then allowing your Google Shopping campaigns to be in a format where you can control where the budget goes. So we tend to build one campaign for heroes. Sometimes that can be heroes and sidekicks together. We build another campaign for villains where we bid really low or we don't bid at all. We would then have a zombie campaign where we're trying to test products that we're not yet sure about. And the key thing we gain there is control over where our Google Shopping spend is going based on performance. So if we want to grow our ecom brand in a DTC sense, it is most likely to come from the products that perform the best on Google Shopping to grow on that particular channel. And often we see that the products which perform on Google Shopping are different to the ones that are overall top performers for the brand. Once you have a classified feed, you can then take that same feed and with 1 or 2 adaptations, you can import it into Microsoft Shopping, into Meta Advantage, into TikTok, into Pinterest Shopping. There are also lots of comparison engines, which particularly in Europe are quite popular because we can often acquire clicks cheaper from a third-party CSS than we can do from running our shopping ads through Google itself. And the more optimized your feed is, the better your products will do on organic shopping, which is the other side of the shopping environment, where we have the ads, which always shows first, but then the organic results as well, which appear on the second tab for people to dig into things more. So if you have ran Google Shopping campaigns and you feel that your best products are not showing, the labeling aspect of running those Google Shopping campaigns is probably why. So a little bit about us. As said, if you want to go and download the prompts and the guides for how we can make this work for you and how you can label your own products, I'll put this URL into the chat right now. You can go here. It's a simple name, email, sign up, and then you can download it all. And then if you are looking to make Google Shopping and Google Ads part of your D2C approach, then we'd love to talk to you about that too. You know, we're one of the very few commission-based ads agencies out there. Google Ads is our core product, but we do run other channels too. But the people who work best with us are the ones that need to make Google Shopping work. And one thing I would say is that if you label your products tomorrow, that'll make an instant difference to any Google Shopping campaigns you are currently running for yourself. Any questions, please feel free to ask, and do download the guide. And I hope you enjoy your labels.
Yeah, that's awesome, Pam. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Great. So next we are into Will. Yeah.
Hello.
Hello, Will. Thank you.
Screen. Cool.
Awesome.
Can you see that all right?
Yeah, we see it. Thank you.
Excellent. Cool. So I'm just going to talk through some CRO reports that we recommend people look at pretty frequently. Everyone likes to look at things like the general conversion rate and general site performance, but there's a few reports you can look at where you're just going to get a bit more information and a bit more direction from these reports. So a little bit about us. So we're a CRO agency in e-commerce. We've worked with over 60 brands over the last 5 years. Average client sees about a 19% lift in conversion rate, and we've generated about 50 million in incremental revenue. We also have a podcast, which I host. We're on about 330 episodes now, and pretty much every episode is an interview with another brand, and we kind of talk about what's driving traffic right now, what's converting that traffic on the website, and how do you retain customers. So we get insight from various other brands that are doing this right now. So I was looking over like all our calls from, I think, the last 6 months or probably this year. And the big challenges that keep popping up for brands are checkout drop-off and trust gaps, and people feeling like this is really where they have conversion issues. And I'm going to talk about why that's not necessarily the issue. Conversion rates flat or down after a redesign. Product discovery is not high enough. So just the number of people who actually find a product on the website is just not high enough. Obviously, you've got things like tariffs, supply chains, economic pressures, consumer pressure. AOV stuck most of the time way below shipping thresholds. Sometimes it's way above, and there's obviously things you can do about that. But often it's shipping thresholds that are just way above AOV. Bot traffic distorting analytics, reasonably easy to filter out a bit and give you some sort of direction and more confidence. And key goals that have come up are obviously increasing conversion rate, general website performance, increasing the amount each customer spends, reducing returns. So this can often be by answering people's questions, making sure they fully understand the product and they find the right product in the first place and can make that purchase. Or it can include just disqualifying people. So letting someone know that this is not the right product for them. Don't buy it because you're going to return it. And neither of us wants to go through the hassle of that. Growing subscription take rates, better understanding the customer journey off-site, on-site. Personalized experiences keeps coming up a lot, although I think unless you're doing maybe 1 million sessions a month plus, I think personalization is a bit overrated. And of course, reduce dependence on paid ad spend. So not necessarily reducing ad budgets, but just making sure that budget is going a bit further, working a bit harder for them. So the way to use CRO properly is obviously starting with research. So really understanding your customers, what is their buying behavior? What is, how do they shop for your type of product? If that's high ticket luxury handbags, for example, that's going to be really different to supplements, like health supplements. So we want to prioritize everything we do based on buyer behavior, but also obviously focusing on a bit on what the company actually needs as well. If the company really needs to drive conversion rate up, you've got to place a focus on that. Whereas if it's profitability and driving AOV, that's where a CRO program needs to lead. So it's that kind of finding that mix of what do your customers want and what do the audience need to be able to push through and make those purchases, and what's actually going to benefit the business. Our methodology, just really quickly, is about customer revenue optimization rather than conversion rate optimization. So everything's focused on, if we are making changes to the website, if we are making changes to the business, is this making you more money or is it saving you more money? That's all that really matters. Obviously, some businesses have a preference for conversion rates. So a subscription brand might say, actually, we don't really care about making that much money off the first purchase. We just want to get people through the door. But for most brands, the end goal is obviously increase revenue, increase profitability. So we split that into our 3 areas of convert, which is all about the website experience, answering questions, driving motivation. Monetize, which is discounts, offers, promos, everything you can do to either increase the amount of money someone spends with you or decrease the amount of money you are kind of spending to actually acquire that customer as well. So with this, I mean things like how much are you giving away in discounts, your free gifts, how much margin is that giving away, free shipping, all that sort of stuff that just digs into margin. And then scale is how it affects things like your paid media, your marketing channels, things like returns, fulfillment, and those other areas of the business that either benefit from the changes that we make on site or the learnings that we get and can provide to the rest of the business. So I'm going to talk through some of the reports that I recommend people look at, even if it's just they are a bit more high level. But this will kind of indicate where you actually have problems and where you should be focusing your efforts. So firstly, and this actually came from a webinar I did the other day, and the first point about the challenges was a lot of people think they have an issue with checkout. Realistically, if your checkout looks like something like this, you're probably fine. If you've got ShopPay, PayPal, Google Apple Wallet, if you've got your 60-day money back guarantee, maybe a review or two, that's fine. That will do the job. If you start adding in things like upsells, timers, I see widgets for giving tips, like giving tips on an e-commerce website. All these things, we've tested, we keep testing, adding them in, removing them. It's always better to not have those things there. It just needs, the free shipping reminder, your money back guarantee or returns policy, and the payment options. So the first place to look at is your Google Analytics funnel. So I know a lot of brands don't spend much time in here. And so we actually look at it as for one particular metric, which is product views. The rest of the time, we do tend to focus on Shopify because that's where people spend all their time. If that's your source of truth, then it makes sense to use that data because Google Analytics does track a bit differently. But what we normally find is product views is one of the highest impact and easiest things to improve on a website. So when you think about it here, 50% of the users that land on a website will view a product. But that's also going to include all the users who land on a product or land on a collection page and are one click away from a product. So higher intent. So, if half of that is people landing on products, then 75% of your traffic is browsing. and only a tiny portion of that is actually then finding a product. So there's huge drop off there. Then obviously you want to look at add to cart, reach checkout, purchase rate. But for the purpose of the Google report, this is the one we tend to focus on. Oh yeah, I forgot about these slides. This is where most people think the problem is, right? Reach checkout, purchase rate, as I kind of said earlier. But realistically, for almost every brand we speak to, the problems are here. If it is related to purchase, which is basically your checkout page, it's almost always because something has been put there which puts people off. So people just messing around with the Shopify checkout, putting the upsells in there and things like that, or potentially shipping fees, right? If people are really struggling to hit free shipping thresholds and you've got high shipping costs, that's going to cause a problem here. But the vast majority of the time, it is getting people to products in the first place and then convincing them they actually want to buy that product. And you can find this here. So if you go into GA4, just for anyone who doesn't know where it is, it's up in the reports. And for the vast majority of people, it'll be under monetization or lifecycle monetization purchase journey, unless you've kind of edited your Google Analytics reports and stuff. But it'll always be in the purchase journey. Just probably set it to last 30 days or last 28 is fine. And then you're just looking at these metrics here. And you can also see the difference between mobile and desktop by default. But then we want to look at Shopify. And so we tend to look at your general Shopify performance. And that will give us that high level indication of where there might be an issue with the website. So here we can see add to cart rate is a bit lower than we would like. So there are probably issues there. And then the key thing to do here is relate it back to this report to say, well, actually, how many people actually view a product in the first place? Because that's the one that's missing from Shopify reports. So that will give you a feel for, actually, is your add to cart rate down? Potentially just because you're not getting people to the products in the first place. Reach checkout here looks fine. And then you've got purchase rate, which is really, really, really bad. Here, this would indicate there's most likely something in the checkout that's causing an issue. But it obviously depends on the brand. It depends on that experience. I think the brand that this is actually based on just had a really, really complex customization process. And we just found that people didn't really understand what they were buying by the end of it. So that was causing a lot of drop off. You then want to split that up by mobile and desktop because it's important to understand actually where the issue is and make sure you're looking at the right devices. It's really, really common to, we're all sat here at laptops, desktops, looking at your own site on a laptop or a desktop. Almost pretty much every site we look at now, the mobile traffic is probably around 70%. Probably varies between about 60 and 80 for most brands. So you need to be looking at your own mobile site and you need to be looking at your mobile data. So here we'll tell you, actually, desktop add to cart rate's pretty good. Mobile is where we're seeing a bit of an issue. So what is actually happening there? And then you go and investigate further. I think that, the key thing about all these reports are they don't tell you what to fix. They just point you in the right direction. You've still got to go off, watch some session recordings, look at heat maps, speak to your customers and find out why they are, they're abandoning their cart at the last step or why people aren't adding to cart in the first place. So you've obviously got the conversion rate over time report. There's just a couple of things we recommend doing to this, which is in the human and bot session filter, you can either change that to is one of human, or I think you just change it to session is one of human and just select that. If you are worried about bot traffic, what you can also do is look at where are you actually marketing, where are you trying to drive traffic from, and then place a session country filter for that as well. So if you only sell in the US, if you're only marketing to the US, you could just set a filter for the US as well, just to try and block out some of that traffic as well. And then for the device report, kind of a similar thing, but you actually just need to go in and add sessions with cart additions, sessions that reach checkout, sessions that completed checkout, remove online store visitors. And then I would just save this as another report, just call it, sessions by device type, CRO, or sessions by device type, whatever you want, but just it's better to save it, and then you can you don't have to put the filters in every single time. And then the final one we look at a lot is landing pages. So what are your top landing pages? Where are you driving that traffic to? And what does performance look like there? Because again, it helps give us a bit of direction for where you might be facing problems. So quite recently, in fact, I've looked at a few brands where the homepage is converted really, really well, while bestseller like bestseller PDPs or collection pages haven't performed that well. And what that's kind of telling us is that actually, yes, they have a bit of a traffic problem. They're driving traffic potentially to the wrong places or with the wrong messages. Those pages also need to be looked at. Like, do collection pages, do PDPs actually provide a good experience for cold traffic? And then also, most likely the homepage is just converting repeat customers, existing customers, people who know the brand. They are coming direct to the homepage because that's what they type in, and they know what they're shopping for, so they will go and buy. So you do have to sit there and kind of think about the data a bit and say, well, okay, if the homepage is converting at 4%, but my bestseller is at 0.81, does that mean I just drive it would be kind of reasonable to think, should I just drive all the traffic to the homepage because that performs? When actually it's probably just a very, very different intent of traffic that's on those pages. For this one, basically the same filters as the sessions by device type. It's sessions by landing page. Just make sure these same metrics are in place and the same filters. The other bit we look at, which is not a default report, so you have to pull the data and run some analysis on it. But looking at AOV and how that relates to your free shipping threshold. This is something, again, we've seen so many big wins for clients recently because the free shipping threshold got set just a bit randomly. Just someone decided this is what it should be. This is what we would feel comfortable with. And then they're not really taking into account actual customer behavior into account there. So, in this example, we've got a free shipping threshold of 170. AOV is down at 127. So there's quite a big gap there. But the most common orders are sitting around the £105 mark. So you're asking people to spend quite a lot more money to get to that threshold. And in this case, it's a brand where all their products are quite high value. So they would only have to add one more product, but we're talking about doubling your spend essentially in order to get free shipping, when it would be perfectly reasonable for someone to expect to be able to buy that one product. So this is where you've got to look at, okay, well, should the free shipping threshold come down? And what can we do to lift AOV as well? So it's always looking at the two things. And I would always start by looking at how can we get people to spend more money first? Always start there, because as soon as you drop your free shipping threshold, it then gets tougher to move that back up if you need to in the future. So I'd always just think, okay, do we reasonably think we can get someone to spend an extra kind of £45 to get to that threshold? If so, let's work on that first. Let's try and drive that AOV and that spend. And then, if we lift AOV to maybe 150, maybe that's where we start to pull that down. Obviously, this is really dependent on your brand and your category, but I'd really just start looking at, of your abandoned carts as well. How many of those sit above and below your free shipping threshold, and then by how much? So again, that would just give you a bit of indication of, what's that buyer behavior? Is the threshold set appropriately, or do we need to be looking at shifting it down a bit? How are upsells being used to try and drive that up as well? This is always a good one. I think the percentage above or below gives a pretty good indication as well as to whether your threshold is set correctly. And then the really final one, which it either looks really bad or doesn't look that bad, is site speed. So we'd always just recommend looking at total blocking time, cumulative layout shift, large LCP, and page weight. Obviously, run it through a report that will give you far more information. But always not on a weekly basis. I would recommend these other reports on a fairly regular basis, especially if you are making changes to the website. But for site speed, probably quarterly is fine. Obviously, if you make changes, then rerun that report after you make changes to see the impact that's had. And then just finally, kind of what I talked about earlier a bit, the four most common areas we see conversion leaking, or three actually. Product discovery. So almost every brand we've spoken to this year has probably been at 30 to 50%, maybe 55. So just huge amounts of traffic and never seeing a product. Product page confidence. So people just either not being motivated to buy. So they're not looking at the product thinking this is amazing, that's going to change my life, I want to buy it. Or they're just sat there going, I don't know what this thing does, or what it's made of, or dimensions, or just basic, the basic questions that are really easy to answer in a store because you can look at the thing. But on a website where someone's assessing something, if they need information, if they don't get it, they're going to bounce. Cart and checkout, often blamed, rarely the case, unless you've done something. And then trust and reassurance. So a lot of brands just stick product reviews on the site. There's no UGC, no brand content, things like guarantees and risk reduction messaging. They're there, and you all know they're there, and you can confidently say that on the website. But if customers can't find them within a couple of seconds of looking for them, as far as they're concerned, they're not there, and that's going to be something that holds them back. So that's it from me. I actually have a link to this sheet, which will run all the calculations and things, but I don't have a chat function in here. So I will email that link out. But yeah,
you can also add it on the email blast we're going to send later. Yeah,
I'll send that over to you. But yeah, I literally don't have a chat function, so I can't send this out. But yeah, final thing, if anyone wants a super deep dive audit of their website, we're doing an offer for the remainder of July, £500 discount. We run through the website, we pick it apart page by page, generally come out with 90 to 100 different opportunities and things that can be optimized on the sites.
Cool.
That's it from me.
Thank you. That's awesome. For sure. Cool. We jump into next one, Simon. Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you, Vincenzo.
Thank you, Simon. Pleasure to have you.
I just want to start by saying this is a really awesome panel. Wow. I'm sitting here taking notes myself. This is incredible. Just, I'm probably going to call back to a few things that people have talked about already, because what we do a ton of is selling on Shopify. And this, I think, is the biggest difference between Shopify and Amazon, is that, yeah, we need to cut through. We can actually be ourselves. We can actually build community around our brands, as opposed to just commodifying our products and hoping that people buy them at the lowest price. That is the worst way, in my opinion, to sell products. So just a little bit about myself before I go in. I own two businesses, one being a more traditional agency. We were given the Digital Marketer Agency of the Year award recently. We spend about $12 million a month on meta ads alone right now, a lot on Google. We do email and SMS marketing as well. But yeah, what Stefan was talking about earlier, I was like, yes, bro, this is the same kind of methodology that we apply to advertising. All right. My second business is Merchant Mastery, which is a mentorship program. We're really high up there in school, and in terms of e-com training programs, I think we're top 3. And we travel the world teaching and talking about this stuff. I'm going to be in 8 cities in August. So if you're in Midwestern US or California area, look me up. We're going to be around there. And of course, we host masterminds at least twice a year. We'll go to New York, Shopify headquarters, and these are all of our community members that fly out from all over the world just to hang out with us for 2 days. They literally don't know each other in person, but they'll like book hotel rooms together. So it's kind of this tight community we have going on here. Like, I mean, Candace here is from Switzerland. Vlad is from Spain. Like, it's cool. We're building this cool thing. Anyhow, I want to just walk you guys through a very specific case study, which with a product that was brand new to the market. And we were challenged. We actually partnered with them. We were challenged to like actually start selling this stuff. Before I go any further, I want to let you guys know that I do have an enemy in the world. Okay. My enemy is Mark Zuckerberg. I want to give that guy as little as possible and take as much from him and his platform as I possibly can. Okay. Despite the fact that I've dumped hundreds of millions of dollars into his platform over the years, that is our job, right? And that is why everything that Stefan was talking about resonated incredibly. Everything that Bill was talking about with logistics and fulfillment, that's how we squeeze more profit out. Who else was talking? Will about CRO. If I'm taking traffic from Meta or Google or whatever, I want to make damn sure they're getting on my email list and they're having the best possible experience on my website, right? For conversion rate optimization. So with that said, when I'm running platforms like Meta, I want to make sure I'm doing the absolute most I possibly can to get the best qualified traffic into an amazing experience on the site and in our email structure and all that stuff, right? So we're going to talk about a single Meta ad today for this product. It's called Purana Skincare. This is a 40 milliliter bottle. Okay. I don't know if there's Americans here. That's like an ounce, I think. I'm Canadian, so who knows? This bottle costs $500. Like, holy shit, right? Insane. How are we going to sell this? Because this product also has 0 celebrity endorsements. It had no social following. This was a brand new product to market. The woman who owns it had like 200 Instagram followers that were all her friends and family, meaning nobody's buying this from organic social. Absolutely nobody. We had no email list. Literally, we are starting from square one, from scratch. We're not buying email lists. We're going to grow this email list. However, what we did have was a compelling narrative. And honestly, she didn't know that she had that at the time that we started working with her. We have to extract this, right? And a lot of people say like, I don't want to be the face of my brand, or, I don't really have a cool story. So how is this going to work? And usually the fact that you're here, that you got to this point where you have a product ready to sell means that you've been through some stuff. Okay. And we just want to tell that story. So we tell story and it works. And in the day and age of AI, when I could pump out probably 1,000 slot blog posts every single day, the stuff that works is the stuff that's authentic, that's real, that's human, that there's characters involved, there's meaning involved, we provide urgency in this messaging, and we just end up creating desire that's beyond just the commodity of this product and people looking for it at the lowest price, right? $500 40 milliliter thing. We got to do a lot more than just say it's better than our competition. So here is an example of an ad. This is one ad that we created. This generated $100,000 in the first, I think, 10 weeks that we ran it. Of course, we ran a bunch of other ads. And the first thing you'll probably notice is that this looks almost like an old school, like magazine advertorial. Like we're using all the real estate we possibly can. Okay, I'm going to break this ad into 5 parts so you guys can use this structure if you absolutely want. Just another note here is, yes, we did this a lot of copy heavy. It's a lot of text. We use the same system in video ad, like all the video creatives that we do use this. We use this in emails. We use this on our website. This is just one example of an ad. And let me break this into parts for you guys. Okay, this will take like 5 minutes. Number 1, we want our category of one headline or hook, right? Typically, if you're a Meta advertiser, the headline lives down here. In my world, we want to hook people above the read more truncation. So this is the hook up here. And the purpose of this hook is, of course, to, tap into a raw desire. It's to get them to stop scrolling. If the creative didn't do it, that hook should. And it's to get them to read the second sentence. It's to get them to click the read more button, right? And this one in our case here is pretty straightforward. right? We leaned into like the most shocking thing about this is that this is going to be the most expensive skincare product you'll ever purchase, but it will also be the purest. Okay. So what happens when they click the read more in this case? What is the next most compelling type of content we can hit them with? And everybody knows this because the entertainment industry alone is like trillions of dollars. The entertainment industry is built entirely on story. Human beings have been telling stories around campfires since before the written word, right? We as humans, we can't, once you hook us, we can't let go until we see what happens at the end. And if it's a cliffhanger, we're going to stay up late and watch the next episode or read the next chapter, right? That is why we hit them with the story, the origin story. Once we grab them, we introduce characters and we start building suspense, right? And we make it so that they can't put this thing down. It's like a good novel, right? And we position ourselves as the category nerd, the best person in the world to bring you this product, right? Because otherwise it's just a product. Why would I buy it from you, right? So I can give you a whole methodology on how we write these things. Actually, my background is in creative writing, an English major 20 some years ago, and there's no jobs for English majors, right? So here we are, marketer. That was after a journey of comedy clubs and hotel marketing, but yeah, we landed here. The next thing we go into after we tell this story, and this is going to be the meat of it, is the differentiation stack. And this is when we just take our best competitor and pit ourselves against them in a list form, just be like, here's what they do, here's what we do. All right. So once we got them, now we want to start introducing the product. And shortly thereafter, there's nothing worse than just us standing in our ivory tower, shouting down at people, telling them how great we are. We hit them with a testimonial stack. Okay. And these are cherry pick reviews, testimonials, UGC snippets that basically we cherry pick them to dismantle the objections that our customers might have, or almost more importantly, to reinforce the narrative that we've just introduced. Okay. And finally, it's not just cute storytelling and interesting things we're talking about here. We want to pitch to these people because we want to convert them on a sale, right? So then we hit them with an offer. And again, there's a whole bunch of, I have a book written about offer strategy here, but we need to give people a reason to act right now. Okay. Sorry if this sounds mind-numbingly simple, but like once you start using these aspects and stacking them in different ways in different organizations, you're going to start selling more, especially from your ads. And once they land on your site, they have much better context as to what to expect, and conversion rate goes up on sites. And of course, we're reiterating this all through the customer journey from when they land on the website to into our email, into our post-purchase emails, as Stefan had. I love the plain text stuff. That's amazing. This stuff works across all categories. Like we have well over 1,000 people in our community, in our merchant mastery community. This is a high ticket community as well. So I've worked with every kind of category. It works across all of this. It doesn't matter if what you sell is boring. People like people. So, we put ourselves out there and we wrap our brand in meaning. And that's what allows people to connect, right? It works whether you sell one product or 1,000, whether you're online or in person, right? I don't know how many people out there hit markets constantly or do pop-ups. Every single one of those people, especially early stages, tell me how much better they do at markets than on their Shopify store, or even on their Amazon. And that's because they are there telling their stories, talking to these people. And this just becomes an exercise in emulating what you're saying in person and putting it online, right? And doing that through the entire journey, where most people online think they're there to buy a product. The least visited page on a website is probably the About Us page. Maybe one of the Phils can back me up on that, but right. So we need to inject this type of content into their journey because they don't know they need it. But once they get it, it absolutely influences their purchasing behavior. All right. So now all that's left, of course, is turning that into a system, which I don't have time to do today. But if you want to reach out to me or book a call with me and see if you're a good fit for anything we do, we have, we basically have the full value ladder where if you're just starting, we have stuff for you. And if you're, wanting to hire an agency for about 5 to 10K a month, we also do that. And that's it for me, guys. Let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Simon. That was awesome. Thank you so much. Cool. And that brings us to the last speaker of the day. So Brian, floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me. So here, let me share my screen real quick. So today I'm going to run through a workflow for like a potential workflow using the Creatorland MCP, a couple other things for a potential Shopify customer. I'm just going to kind of showcase what's possible with AI when it comes to creator marketing. So a little bit of background on me. I've been in the creator economy for the last 11 years. Built a large nano and micro influencer marketplace that I founded in 2015 to about 500,000 creators and about 3,000 brands. My new company is Creatorland, which is the LinkedIn for the creator economy. It's free to join. We have 106,000 members, about 25,000 monthly actives, somewhere between 12 and 14,000 brands on the platform. Essentially, think about Creatorland as the ultimate showcase for a creator, a place to network, DM. We have a job board that's free. So if you have any kind of hiring that you want to do for free, feel free to post on the job board for hiring creators of any type. And we are also very good at capturing and organizing data. So one of the things that we offer is for creators to OAuth their Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube channels on the platform. In addition to all the things that they're entering directly in the platform about who they are, and also connecting their Gmail. And we take all of the data that we have access to, which is just mountains of it, and unify that into one kind of central data store, which powers different experiences on the platform, including our MCP or connector for Claude. Claude, Codex, ChatGPT, Perplexity, you want to run OpenClaw, you can do that with the MCP as well. And this enables some very, very cool experiences. Now, the thing about AI, if you've ever tried to use AI for creator marketing, it's challenging because there's this gap around the source of truth. The more experienced you are with AI, the more you know it performs significantly better when you try and put some boxes around it. Like if you connect the Gmail connector to Claude, for example, or Codex, and say, go find XYZ information in my email. Here's an example of the type of thing that I'm looking for. It's going to do that faster, better, more accurately. And the same thing is true with influencer marketing related work. So in a side-by-side smoke test of Claude by itself, with 60 influencer marketing prompts like pricing, casting, discovery, lookalike, that kind of thing, it really struggles. Wants to make you happy, but that ends up with a lot of hallucinations. When we ask the same questions connected to our data set, that now the superpower of a frontier model can be harnessed to actually achieve results for influencer marketing, like finding the right creators for your brand, or doing really deep market intelligence work, or pricing creators. And we can even do the outreach. So this is available live today. Of course, I'm going to get into the meat of how this relates to a Shopify brand in just a second, but just in case you want to check it out, mcp.creatorland.com, and do make sure to install the plugin and skill pack, because that gives your Claude, your Codex, your ChatGPT extra superpowers for virtually every possible operational workflow for content creator marketing. So what I'm going to run through kind of a demo here. Now we're going to pretend we're Gymshark, which is a major Shopify customer, for a second. And you're going, look, we've got a very large email list. We want to know who from our existing email list are actually content creators, are influencers. And so I ran this morning before the call. So these are all real creators that I showed here. I didn't have Gymshark's email list, obviously, but we've done this for multiple clients. It's quite effective. So basically, so you would take Claude, connect the Shopify MCP to Claude, and connect the Creatorland MCP to Claude. And this is the exact prompt that I used, with some additional caveats of like, hey, we have to make up some of this SKU data because it's not real. But look at the Gymshark site to kind of anchor us. And so we're saying, hey, use the Shopify MCP to query the customers in there and pull those emails. Then use the Creatorland MCP and identify which of those would be good content creators for my brand. And I want to see the spend history on those customers. I want to see the SKUs that they bought, and I want you to prior rank them by the most spend. And this is the output that you could expect from that. I'm going to widen the screen just a little bit here. So it pulled, in this case, I think we've got, and I bounded it to 300, but we pulled, these are 300 real creators. Their follower size, the profile URL, if they had a Creatorland URL, because we have a much wider data corpus that we tap into, as well as our 106,000 members, where they're located. And this is what your Shopify data could return. So how many orders they've done, total spend, how long they've been a customer, when they bought last, the SKUs. And then we also included kind of a pricing band. So like, what would it cost for, what could you expect to spend to sponsor this creator? So these are basically built-in brand ambassadors who already love your brand. If they are repeat purchasers, that is the highest possible signal, as all Shopify DTC brands already know. But why not identify the ones who could then be amplifying your brand? So the kind of next natural step here, a bunch of different directions you could go, but I think the first one is, if you have an affiliate program, these people should be getting pinged with that immediately. This would be something that if I had a D2C Shopify brand, I would have an automation going for. So essentially like an agentic loop that is running constantly. As soon as I've got a purchase, do I know if they are a content creator? Should they be in my affiliate program? And maybe they should be getting, depending on how many followers they have, or what their engagement looks like, or how much of a match they are for what I'm trying to activate, then they should be getting potentially a higher commission tier than what somebody who walks in off the street is getting. And the other thing you could be doing is, if you're running a creator campaign and you don't, let's say you've got 20 creators in your existing email list, then you could be going directly back into Claude that's connected to the MCP and saying, all right, help me expand this list. I want this list to be 250 because I'm trying to run a campaign. I want people like this. These people obviously have a high affinity towards my brand. I've seen that they are actually, like in this case with Gymshark Fitness, or active creators, or maybe they're athletes, or maybe they're yoga, that kind of thing. We want more of that. Well, this is a great starting point to kind of fan out and build that lookalike list. You could even take your existing list of creators that you've found and say, okay, how much should I budget, and what should my campaign strategy be to activate this group and people like this group? And it will design that for you. The Claude is really, really helpful for this. Don't make it harder for yourself than it has to be to design and start to test your creator campaigns. And the Creatorland MCP can actually do the outreach for you. So once you kind of go back and forth with it and design what the package is and what the messaging is, we have a full outreach workflow that it will do, and it will pair you over email with the creators who opt into the campaign that you want to run. And then from there, you could be setting up content tracking. So once they post, monitoring that content, connecting to the Meta MCP if you're putting paid performance behind it, and building your own kind of little dashboard and ecosystem for the creators that you've worked with, activated, done paid amplification, and then learning from those insights. Just a couple examples of a couple things that I've built for potential or for clients that we're working with. You can pull down really deep audience insights using the MCP product. So this is for like a gaming creator, but you can see this is for his YouTube channel, subscriber growth, average views, kind of channel key terms, top content, and then get into the audience information. So who is following this? Do they match my customer target? So if you were going to be activating a creator that really any kind of dollar amount, and especially if you were planning on putting paid performance behind it, then you would want to know what the existing audience is like for this. If the content's popping off, then you can get into more detail on, okay, if I amplify this further, is it going to be going after people who typically buy my product? You can also pull down who their notable followers are, who's engaged, what the audience are that are engaging with the content, notable commenters. And this could be something, or audience lookalikes for similar creators, which is another thing that you could pull. So if you had a really high performing creator and you really like their audience, then you could be leveraging, Claude and the MCP to build a lookalike list of other similar channels to that creator based on that audience profile, starting with one of these kind of audience reports that we offer. So anyway, just the one last thing I'll cover here. This is something that we did for a new DTC brand in kind of the skincare space. And so they had not done any creator marketing yet. They're a brand new business. And so I actually asked Perplexity to build a list of 100 competitors to them. Then I took that list, copy pasted it into Claude, connected to the MCP, and said, find me the creators that are working with these brands. I want to know what they're getting paid. And I want to have an analysis across this list of my competitors for, how I might fit into this and, how competitive it is for activating creators. And so essentially it went through, built this little microsite, found these specific brands and how many creators we could find that have worked, that we know for sure have been paid and hired by which brand, and then how deep the supply is of all the other creators that we have and that have matched for those competitors. And it turns out that there's a pretty big gap. A lot of their competitors are not actively working with content creators, so that is a potential white space for them. And then this actually pulled the exact creators that were working with which brand, estimated their rates, and gave a little overview on them and linked to their content or linked to their profile, so we could go out and say, oh, who's this person? You can even pull the specific post in a lot of cases. So you could look at, okay, how are my competitors positioning themselves? So anyway, just covering a few different workflows there that I thought were super interesting. I actually pulled one of those reports on one of the creators from the Gymshark list. This is a coach, just to kind of show the detail we can get off of an Instagram report. So we can see kind of fake follower counts, city locations of their followers, all types of really, really interesting stuff. So running close on time here, but if anybody would like to connect with me, feel free to shoot me a note, brian@creatorland.com. And I can send you a playbook on these workflows and others, and just shoot me kind of what you're working on. I'm happy to help design kind of a strategy and implementation for this product with you and make your creator marketing a lot more successful. Thank you.
Awesome, Brian. That's great. Thank you so much for that. So, unfortunately, we run quite a bit over time, guys. And I'm very sorry about that. I think, the content was so good and that I didn't want to stop any of you. So thank you so much for all of that. But I'm mindful that, we are a few minutes over schedule. So unfortunately, this time we wouldn't be able to really do the Q&A. But what I definitely want to invite everybody, because everybody joining us live and everybody that's going to watch this recording, you guys are going to get a follow with all the presentation, all the content information from all the speakers and everybody involved in this. Feel free to, of course, reach out to each of us. The reason why we're doing these things is to really put ourselves out there and try to give you guys as much value as possible. And more importantly, really kind of give you the foundation where really is going to be the most impact when it comes to implementing things specifically for this topic in the D2C space. So I would say, to kind of conclude, I want to take a minute to really thank all the panelists. I think you guys did an amazing job, and even myself, I learned a lot from you. So thank you so much for that. And for all the people that join us, thank you guys for being here. And of course, keep turning on to all these webinars that we're doing. So as I said, you're going to receive the recordings, all the resources, and you're more than welcome to then, of course, we engage in from there. Other than that, I wish you all an amazing rest of the week, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. But thank you, everybody. Yeah, it's been a pleasure.